So, Kingdom Hearts 3 is out for a while now, and since I'm a bit of a Kingdom Hearts guy, here's a video that will be my thoughts and review and some mild dissecting. There will be spoilers, especially when I start talking about the story. So for those who want to avoid them, well, I enjoyed the game a lot, and, well, spoilers from now on. Loved the game, thought it was great, not sure where I rank it in terms of gameplay. It had some of the best Disney worlds I've seen, especially I love Toy Story and Pirates of the Caribbean, but it also contained my most disliked world from the whole series so far, Frozen. So in terms of gameplay, I'm not sure, but it's up there. I have some issues with the level design, but I'll get back to that when I get to the dissecting. And much as I loved Sora killing his most dangerous foes by riding a theme park ride, the summons got a little too frequent sometimes. I have a soft spot for 3D platformers with RPG elements in them. A rare genre these days, so I'm glad Kingdom Hearts is still keeping it alive, even if the platforming is not as prominent as in the first game anymore. Although it's still there were a few frustrating platform sections. Though granted, I was a stupid idiot and it took me way too long to figure out I could activate more abilities like double jump and float in the options menu. Oh my god, there's actually civilians this time. It's been a running joke with me lately that the Kingdom Hearts locations all felt like ghost towns to me. But this time we do see a ton of civilians, even in the Disney world, so that's nice. One of the elements that got people divided is the cell phone theme the game has. Personally, I love it. It plays straight into my parody mind, not to mention it gives a human touch to the characters. I love to portray Sora as this social media addicted dope making selfies during every moment of his adventure. Posting Instagram messages including photos somehow made in his spiritual dream world, casually hashtagging people's traumatic experiences. Oh look, the kids from Twilight Town will of course make a picture of themselves sneaking upon the big bad guy and post it on the internet. Who wouldn't? And I'm glad to see me making selfies during boss battles isn't just gameplay versus story integration, but is actually canon, as Sora does have pictures taken during his confrontations apparently. Don't give me any of that, that's not canon crap either. If I have to listen to Xanhort casually mentioning he duplicated an entire freaking planet just to study some toys at face value, then let me have the Instagram madness as well. Sure, it's breaking the world order rules, but who cares? Like Sora and pals do a good job keeping it a secret anyway. Don't worry about the talking duck or the giant dog over there, fellas. Look, they wear pirate clothes, so they're totally not weird space aliens. I wish there were comments below the Instagrams, like Sora bragging about going to his limbo heaven place or whatever, and Zeus is all, my heaven is way cooler though, and then Hades is like, blah, way too bright, hashtag underworld is better, and then Sora's at Mufasa, hey, how are you doing the face in the clouds thing? Alright, but Disney told Square Enix the franchises aren't allowed to intersect, so that won't happen, which is stupid since Kingdom Hearts is not canon with the Disney movies anyway, so it shouldn't matter. And besides, there's already tons of crossover to Disney movies, but oh well. Stupid rules are stupid rules, I guess. In terms of story, it's probably my favorite one, if only because it finally drops, as CinemaSins would have called it, the pronoun game with all the endless scenes of indistinguishable characters sitting mysteriously in a mysterious room going, oh, did he do the thing on the day, somewhere, something, maybe something, somewhere, something, somewhere, ooh. For hours, like I have enough grasp on a labyrinth story made out of quicksand to go play detective. No, characters are way more highlighted, they talk more straight with each other, there's a lot more character dynamics going on, and Square Enix got a lot looser with the characters, which I really like. Having the balls to have some Disney characters be sassy back at the villains or just throwing them overboard, instead of everyone just standing around like a sack of potatoes listening to their magic space poetry all the time. The Disney worlds are way more relevant this time, the pace of the game is a lot faster, perhaps a little too fast, the game is short, but at least it's not wasting my time either, so that's good. I guess they got concerned new players would be confused if the game starts with a 4-hour long prologue again, so instead they dump you straight into the Disney worlds. Kind of confusing how the Final Fantasy characters are completely dropped, especially since Cloud and Squall still had a running plotline, but oh well. Maybe it's because it's been too long since I played the main Kingdom Hearts games and I got the cheaper spin-offs too much on my mind, but I was surprised how the cutscenes were a lot closer in the style of the original movies this time. Sometimes a little too much, as sometimes the cutscenes seem to be literal shot-for-shot remakes of the original movies, with of course, the Frozen song being the most infamous extreme. But even watching the Tangled cutscenes and seeing all those interactions and quick cuts and creative camera angles, character motivations being explained through actions, editing, and humor, it's so strange seeing real writing show up in Kingdom Hearts, where usually the Disney plots are more explained like this.
There's this girl here. Her name is Cinderella. She made me realize how powerful it is just to believe. No matter how impossible things seem, a powerful enough dream will always be enough to light the darkness.
Well, he looks at me and I look at him, and he looks at me, and I look at him, and he looks at me, and I look at him.
Well, okay, that was an extreme hyperbolic example, but still, often everyone stands around like a sack of potatoes, dryly stating the plot points and awkwardly forcing some jibber-jabber about dreams and past and hearts and darkness into it as well. Well, now all of a sudden it's a lot more slick and fast and quick and funny, and it feels a little out of place compared with Kingdom Hearts' usual style of slow pans and slow dialogue. To be fair to Kingdom Hearts is an unfair comparison. They have a giant game to make and 10 hours of cutscenes and dozens of stories to produce, with perhaps even less budget than the Disney artists have to just make a 90-minute movie, so can't expect them to have the same level of detail and sharpness. Just saying, it's very noticeable when Kingdom Hearts stops being Kingdom Hearts and briefly turns into an actual Disney movie for a bit. Especially jarring when the Kingdom Hearts writing suddenly returns in the middle of one of those Disney scenes. One where I almost got decapitated from the mental whiplash was in the Pirates of the Caribbean level. For 10 minutes, you're watching and playing a full-grade Hollywood pirate adventure movie with flashy one-liners, spectacular stunts, and sword fighting, and all the rapid-paced adventure and swashbuckling you expect from those. And then Sora opens his mouth.
I may still have a lot to learn about love, but I know what it means to share my heart with others. And it will take more than you to break a bond like that.
Ouch. Although I like Davy Jones' answer. Amen to that, Davy. And even within the same game with the Disney stuff, just compare Tangled with all the character dynamics and slapstick at rapid pace with, say, Toy Story's original cutscene to this drag of everyone just standing around constantly repeating the same plot points. Yes, Buzz Lightyear doesn't trust us, I get it already! If you're gonna make a 40-minute mini-movie about this plot, at least set up a more dynamic scene where Sora and friends do something to create this tension, instead of just endless static scenes where everyone's talking about it. But I have to admit, the cutscenes do look very pretty, so at least it's nice to look at, even if the animators don't really have anything to work with. And I guess I should be grateful the Toy Story cast suddenly doesn't start talking about dreams and hearts and all that shit. But again, I thought the writing was generally improved, if only because they eased down on the setting up mysterious scenes of mystery for future installments, and saving that for the very end, and having the characters have more straight conversations most of the time, so I can actually understand what's going on for a change. And I have to give the animators credit, it seems imitating Disney movies did rub off on them, as even the traditional Kingdom Hearts seems to have more dynamic movement going on, even involving the more stiff characters. Although that might be just because I'm still used to the more cheaper handheld Kingdom Hearts games, I suppose. Music is amazing, way more energetic, magical, and epic than in past games. Okay, that's as far as my boring general review goes. Now it's time for dissecting as I go a little deeper into some specific subjects I wanted to talk about. First of all, level design. So Kingdom Hearts always had this unique style of level design, that the worlds are made out of series of small arenas, basically. That the arenas you play in are relatively compact and small. This was mostly done for technical reasons, probably, to get the highest quality graphics possible on those old systems, but besides that, it gives a unique identity to Kingdom Hearts. Especially the first game, it felt like every area you were in was literally a 3D version of a backdrop from the animations. Like you're literally hopping from animation backdrop to animation backdrop in 3D. This made it that there's a ton of variation in each world, each level area seemed to have a unique Disney landmark in them, and even the original worlds always had unique content in each and every room you were in. And as a result of the developers trying to get as much gameplay as possible from these small arenas, the worlds are made in such a way there's a lot of hopping around, making the worlds feel sprawling despite having very little real estate. The arenas were all interconnected differently, so you were really running around the world all the time. Kingdom Hearts 2 and Dream Drop Distance had more powerful hardware, so started adding larger areas that resembled regular level design more closely, with straightforward RPG mazes, wide open towns, and larger patches of wilderness, but regardless, it still held on to the lots of small arenas in sprawling areas type of world design most of the time. And I thought it was a good thing because Kingdom Hearts 1 was a little too small sometimes, especially Agrabah felt awkward and barely resembled the big sprawling city it was supposed to be, and it was instead made out of weird tiny city themed rooms. Compare it with Kingdom Hearts 2's Agrabah, that's an entire city block, and it feels a lot more at what it should have been like. But anyway, then we get to Kingdom Hearts 3, and it seems they almost entirely dropped the entire interconnecting area style world design. It's still there to a degree, but usually each world only has 2 areas instead of the dozen you had in the past, and those areas are huge. Well, usually you have one small story-related area and one giant gameplay-related area, but this has a few consequences. One, that there's a lot less variety by the locations this time, and you'll spend most of the worlds in just one location. So forget about going from a military camp to the mountains to a Chinese capital, or from a tower, opera, French town all crammed into one world. This time each world largely resolves around just one type of environment, which, to be fair, was also the case with the first Kingdom Hearts. Although that one had a couple more worlds than this new one. Another thing is that now there's also more dead space. Instead of one iconic location after another, there's a lot more, just generic forest or generic mountain to go through. It still looks beautiful, so it isn't a big deal, but one problem I did have with the new worlds is that a lot of the worlds feel a lot more linear now. In particular, Frozen, Tangled, and Monsters Inc. have too much of a Call of Duty level design going on, where you just run through an endless pathway or corridor without too much exploration or too much interplay. It's a shame because the Toy Story world in particular did a great job in emulating the same style of world building as the older Kingdom Hearts games, despite largely taking place on one giant location. But it's fully open and explorable, yet still divided into clearly defined sectors. Besides Andy's room and the street that are two nice distinct areas, there's a giant toy store, so you get a ground floor that you can move freely to other two floors, and on those floors there's a separate mini stores or playpens, all with a ton of details. It's fun to check all the wares on the store. But anyway, so it still has that same kind of philosophy going on, that there's a lot of separate areas all interconnected together. Compare that with Monster Inc.'s building, where there's never really a central location or separate sectors, but it's just one giant linear corridor that you keep following. Granted, there's a lot of visual variety, so it's not too boring, but I never really felt a connection with the Monster Inc. building the same way as I did with the toy store. The toy store was a real building for me to bond with, enjoy, explore, while Monster Inc. is just a level you run through. But hey, at least the Monster Inc. building had several iconic rooms from the movie, variety and some fun set pieces. But then you get to the Frozen world and then you just get stuck on a snow mountain. There's no variety, no escape, it's just snow, mountain, more snow, more mountain. This world's idea of variety is throwing you into an ice dungeon for a bit, which, sure, it's not a snow mountain, but it's still thematically very similar. I was so desperately hoping we'd visit the town of Arendelle, or at least the castle, something that's thematically different, but no, you never get there. I understand why the developers didn't want to render the city. It's because they'd have to make a frozen and a defrosted version of it after the story's over, but it's still kind of disappointing, especially since in Tangled you do actually visit the castle town. But I have to give Kingdom Hearts some credit. I did love the visuals when it was sunset and the snow got all pink during the marshmallow snow fight. That looked kind of neat, and it was a relief from the endless white and blue at least. But yeah, Frozen is easily my most disliked Kingdom Hearts world of all. Despite the great music, the fun snowboard section, and the cool wolf boss, sorry, but you ain't enough to make up for the dullness of the endless snow. Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance were also very linear in level design, although in those games I figured it was more because in that game the levels were split up between multiple characters, so I figured just because they had to keep some sectors separate and unique for each character, they had a little space to work with. An excuse that this game doesn't have, but oh well. Still, not all worlds had a problem. Toy Story and Pirates still felt they had the same level design spirit of the old games. Hercules even had the luxury of having 3 distinct environments instead of just 2. But yeah, so that's it mostly for the level design. Well, okay, there's the Big Hero 6 level 2, which is the other extreme and is a very open world city block, which is really miles away from the classic Kingdom Hearts level design. But it fit the theme of the level, and I enjoyed it, especially since I played it after the 2 most linear stages of the entire series. Then it really felt like a relief. One bit of warning though, if you play Big Hero 6, there's a huge stretch of gameplay and cutscenes where the game doesn't let you save, which drove me insane because I wanted to go to bed, but the game just kept throwing boss after cutscene after mission in a row, without any save points. However, the game actually does have an auto-save feature, so you can shut the game off if you want to leave, just like most modern games. Although, I personally wasn't sure at the time if it had auto-save, since the game still uses the classic save point system from the older games again. But those are just there to create multiple load points, so not to worry. Anyway, as for the story, I understand most hardcore Kingdom Hearts fans found it a little disappointing. I thought it was one of the better ones in terms of story. I think the key point here, what makes it unappealing for some and more appealing for me, is it tones down the spiritual significance aspect of the series and brings it more down to earth. What the Kingdom Hearts series always loves to do is play up the significance of everything. Everything is always the chosen one and it's filled with symbolism and there's this sense of spiritual greatness. almost as if it's some sort of religious experience. You're the chosen one, the one with the key to open the door. Everything is darkness, and only you have the light. Gather the 7 pure hearts of light, because 7 is magical and pure and hearts and lights. Whoa! And while I do enjoy that to a degree, it creates amazing visuals, music, and spectacle, but I felt the significance was always kind of empty because there isn't much of a hard story that it's in service of. Often it feels like significance just for the sake of it being significant. Then on the way to Kingdom Hearts 3, I was watching some videos of people speculating what was going to happen in this game, and it was mostly about more significance. Sora is Kingdom Hearts himself. He's the Jesus God among the... He's even more chosen one-year, and even more lighter, and he has even more hearts, or even more lightness. So I kind of went into Kingdom Hearts 3 worrying the whole story would be something like that. But instead, the story went in the complete opposite direction and started completely deconstructing and collapsing all of its symbolic significance, which I kind of got a kick out of that. Perfect example is the final battle with Xenohort wanted to resurrect the magical Chi Blade. So the series loves its symbolism, its symbolic significant numbers. You need 7 pure hearts of light and 13 hearts of darkness because significant symbolic numbers. This stuff is drilled into your head and central to the plot and symbolism so far, and then you get to the finale of the game, and instead of 7 Heroes of Light, there's 9, and there's several backups planned by Xenohort, and a bunch of more show up during the battle, including a bazillion diseased ones from the past. So never mind 7 Heroes of Light, there's a bazillion of them. And as for the 13 Vessels of Evil, practically half of the villains assembled don't give a shit about Xenohort's evil plan, openly betray him and mock him, and several outright join the hero's side, and Xenohort himself doesn't even seem to care and shrugs at everyone betraying him off. So instead of this important, symbolic, holy 7 heroes versus 13 devoted servants of evil, it's a chaotic brawl with random numbers and members all over the place. In fact, in the end, the only relevant part of the whole prophecy is that there just needs to be at least 13 battles of light and darkness against each other. The amount of people doesn't matter, who wins or dies doesn't matter, just as long as there's 13 distinct fights taking place about light and evil, that's all that really matters in the end. So the original numbers were stupid anyway, since... let's say all the ones on the evil side would win every single fight, then you only had 7 Warriors of Light, so there would be only 7 of the 13 required fights. So this entire prophecy is a mess, and everyone is just improvising, making it up as they go along anyway, and I kind of like that. In fact, Xenohort manages to kill all the main characters even before any official fights even starts. Lucky for him, Sora managed to revive every one of them. Otherwise, he pretty much sabotaged his entire plan right there and then. Dumbass. I think it's way more interesting than if it was all clean and significant and holy. This makes it a lot more human and makes the characters a lot more central to the conflict rather than everyone just being mere pawns for some sort of spiritual chess game. Even if the game itself still loves using that visual anyway. It also kind of fits with the Organization 13 theme better. The entire point of them was that they lack a heart, they have no motivation, no will, no passion. I don't think the other games ever really portrayed that very well. Most of the time they still seem to be very emotional, still have strong motivations, and we're constantly on the ball. And to be fair, I think there's plot reasons for that, so there's probably an excuse. But nevertheless, in terms of concept, in terms of what they're supposed to be, it's not really sold very well. Everyone is just a mysterious mystery of mysteries that mysteriously talks about mysteries. With this game, most of them being way more blunt, outright careless, and bored with each other, with some literally being benched as reserves, who then just join the hero side out of boredom, the whole theme of them having no heart and being unempathetic toward the whole thing is just way better sold, and it makes the villains way more dynamic and interesting than they were before, to me. And unlike Kingdom Hearts 2 and Chain of Memories that treated their defeats like literal death, and them screaming for their life and fear, now they do more of a thing that they regain their heart and their emotions while dying, or well, being reborn as humans, and getting a much more human and respectful payoff that doesn't make Sora and his Disney pals look like vicious psychopathic murderers. So that's nice. I'm surprised how sympathetic they portrayed them too. In the previous games I got the feeling most of the organization were just throwaway, meaningless villains. Half of them had no origin, no motivation, or any purpose other than just vaguely wanting a heart, before being unceremoniously killed off by Sora without any kind of closure. I was already surprised a lot of them bothered returning as main villains, considering how underutilized and wasted they were before, and now having even less motivation to be Xemna's best friend for a second time around, considering they did get their hearts back, and now are apparently mutilating themselves on purpose for a second time. Not to mention Xemnas being way more open about his true motivations of turning them all into vessels for his own, so them being nobodies yet again seemed even worse than the first round. But this game actually does address it pretty well with most of them. Well, okay, only with some of them. which is still more than I expected, to be honest. Jeez, they really love breaking the fourth wall in this game, don't they? Is Axel freaking Deadpool now or something? One main complaint I see people bring up a lot about Kingdom Hearts 3 is that the story drags too much in the middle with just filler and all the real plot is saved for the last part. And I agree, but isn't that the case with all Kingdom Hearts games? Usually the war sequence is brought up from Kingdom Hearts 2 as an example of a big plot thing happening in the middle part, but that one always felt like empty significance for me. Sure, it looks and feels epic, but beats me what the point of the whole war was, story-wise. There's no build-up or payoff to it, it just kind of happens and then it's over again. Just this casual mission that just happens to look more dramatic than usual. But it still boils down to the same, sorry, your Riku and Kairi princesses are in another castle stuff that you get in the Phillip Planets too, so whatever. It feels more epic, and since the Disney Worlds get a second chapter after that event, makes it feel like a big midway point, I suppose. So in terms of pure feelings of significance, I guess I can see the difference. But in terms of pure plot, I consider it mostly empty significance. So purely speaking from a plot perspective, eh. As for filler, Kingdom Hearts 3 has a little more fun with connecting the Disney worlds with some of the villains. Vanitas having an interest in the power of fear, the replicated Riku showing an interest in other artificial life forms, although I'm confused whether it was the actual replica Riku or the evil Ansem possessed Riku, in which case this connection doesn't make any sense. And then of course there's young Xehanort connected with toys because he's young, I guess? Or Xehanort has a more playful side we don't get to see? What, is he playing with Disney action figures? Is that why he's locked up in his room so often? I admit the connection is often very shallow, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Most of their plots revolve around the herd of Xehanorts trying to recreate a new heart. I'm kinda confused and bemused that Xehanort and his pals still don't know how to create a heart, and act like this is a super difficult task to achieve. Even though Jiminy Cricket already created an artificial heart with ease, by accident even. He just wrote down a generic description of Sora down in his journal, they processed that into a computer, and voila, digital Sora is born, including a functional heart, and it even came with a free Evil Rox's counterpart bonus heart included. Why doesn't Xehanort just describe himself on a piece of paper, throw that into the computer, and then he can have as many artificial Xehanorts as he wants? Easy. Maybe Xehanort keeps failing at that because he can't be honest with himself, and he keeps describing himself as a little more cool and awesome than he really is, and that the computer rejects that. I guess that would be Jiminy's greatest skill, to be honest and neutral. What I'm really missing is some sort of big central town level. Kingdom Hearts at Traverse Town, Kingdom Hearts 2 at Twilight Town and Radiant Garden. Kingdom Hearts 3 has a quarter of Twilight Town. A big adventure like this really needs an anchor point, a home, a central place. But the Twilight Town from this game is really small and not much happens in it. It's really disappointing. They can't even be bothered to give Merlin a home. He has to sit outside with his tiny Winnie the Pooh book. Really wish we could visit Radiant Garden or something, because, Organization 13 is now a human again, so it would be nice to be able to talk to them and see how Leon's doing and all that, but oh well. At least the Ratatouille minigame is kind of fun, although I never really got how the eggs work, but This game loves putting character pairs back together. Not sure if it's always a good thing or a bad thing. It's kind of cute they remember details like Maleficent being Riku's old mentor and giving them a moment together. But on the other hand, it doesn't really go anywhere. Maleficent never really factors into the plot, and this isn't a real Riku, but like a fake Riku, and their dialogue doesn't really mean anything. It's just, hey, these know each other, so they have a chat. It's kind of cute, but for what's really an insignificant little Easter egg, it's weird how much emphasis it gets. It does make the story sometimes feel a little bloated. Although I have to admit, it's kind of cool to see Maleficent just casually walking in a modern city like that with no care or no particular reaction to it. One funny thing about Kingdom Hearts for me is how my thinking process is the complete opposite of in the past. 10 years ago, I was usually baffled by the weirdness. I remember my brain shutting off in Kingdom Hearts 2 when the kids realize a word has been stolen. Like the ability to say an actual word. Sure, they act a little surprised, but then they're searching for a literal thief. Yeah, eventually we'll learn they live in a computer program, so someone tampered with the programming, so there is the logical explanation why, eventually. But regardless, the fact that especially Roxas shrugs and immediately concludes there's a freaking Beagle Boy or something running around making the existence of sounds disappear, that's his first conclusion, just creates this atmosphere that, well, it's Kingdom Hearts. Just a boy having a mild depression that he wants to leave his island is enough to cause the entire apocalypse to implode his entire planet into non-existence. Yeah, eventually it's revealed Xehanort will cause this to happen, but we don't learn that until bazillion games later. For the longest time, the series wanted you to believe that, yeah, Riku's heart was a little sad, so kaboom! Bye, planet. Depressed people are just nuclear time bombs, literally, So as a result, now I'm the complete opposite. Now it's when mundane things happen that I'm a lot more baffled. So when I replay Kingdom Hearts 2, for example, all the crazy stuff, words disappearing, sure, it's Kingdom Hearts. Now it's the mundane stuff. The fact that these kids go to school and do homework that has me baffled instead. That's the stuff that feels out of place now. Like normal stuff like schools exist in this world? What, do they learn actual things like math and science? Does that exist in the Kingdom Hearts universe? Or do teachers just barf the same mumbo-jumbo space poetry about dreams and darkness and hearts? One thing in particular that especially amused me in Kingdom Hearts 3 is that at some points it wants to pretend gravity is a danger to the main characters. Gravity. Look, for Disney villains I'll buy it, that's their special weakness, but the main characters... Sora spends the entire game running up and down skyscrapers and jumping off mountains like it's nothing, but suddenly, oh no, he falls! Sora being surprised that Titans survived falling off a mountain, Zigbar committing suicide from dropping off a cliff. Yeah, I know he was faking it, but still, this was supposed to be a convincing death somehow. Or Aqua and Ventus being in danger of dropping a couple feet. Oh no, not Aqua! You know, her. And no, don't bring up gameplay and story segregation. The Birth by Sleep gang were quite happily falling down giant mountains all the time in cutscenes as well, even when frozen once, without shattering. Gravity is a joke here, so all the attempts to make it look dangerous just make me laugh. I've always had severe issues and nothing but mockery for plot twists in previous games, but this time, Kingdom Hearts 3 actually has several plot twists I actually liked, mostly because this is the first time I understand the stakes, I understand the setup, and there's a payoff, and there's dynamics to the twists. For example, the moment where Vexen betrays Xenohord. Xenohord just retrieved Ansem the White from the Underworld. So Vexen saves Ansem the White, and Sora gains a powerful ally, and Xenohord realizes the treachery, so I'm wondering what he's going to do about that, if he knows who betrayed him, or what his actions will be, and he prepared exactly 13 villains, so he has a replacement, there's gonna be someone else in trouble. And then I'm not entirely sure if Vexen's really on the hero side, or if he's double agent, or he's gonna betray the heroes and has some sort of other plan. Because thanks to his action, it has better access to damage Sora's causes from the inside. And how is Ansem the Wise gonna help the heroes? How will he treat his old assistants who betrayed him in the past? See, there's a lot more plot possibilities and character dynamics happening here. And that makes it more fun and exciting for me to watch. As opposed to plot twists in previous games where they expect me to care that some guy that barely had a minute of screen time, mostly wasted by spouting magic space poetry, suddenly has a different name. Or how an object in the sky isn't evil but good, whatever that means. Or Dream Drop Distance expecting me to have any idea what the hell is going on with all the time travel and dream stuff that's never really established to begin with. Those to me were twists with no emotional stakes, no changing character dynamics, and work entirely only on a because the writers of the game says so meta level. The older Kingdom Hearts games had a tendency to tell plot twists in reverse, as in you get the dramatic twist first, but it'll only give you the data to understand why it's a twist much later, usually in a different game in the series. But no, not this time. The plot twist is a proper plot twist, so well done Kingdom Hearts, you achieved the impossible and managed to make me care about your plot twist for once. An impressive feat indeed. But yeah, I can imagine that this is disappointing if you did take the previous Kingdom Hearts way more serious than I did, and were expecting everyone to be utterly devoted to the spiritual cause. Because yeah, this game retcons a little bit and changes a couple details here and there, because the story is set up way more flexible and dynamic this time around. A lot of the usually stiff, otherworldly, omnipotent, spiritual stuff and larger-than-life characters becoming a lot more muddy and sometimes even comical in this one. Although there's still plenty of spiritual things happening in here, especially Sora going to the afterlife. Square Enix is just begging me to parody this, aren't I? Anyway, the dying and getting resurrected scene is kind of funny anyway, because they completely forget to set up the idea that when Sora resurrects himself, he also travels back in time, and so can undo the events that happened. Except apparently none of the characters even remember, so they still do exactly the same thing as the first time around, so you would almost expect them to be stuck in some sort of Groundhog's Day loop here, dying over and over and over again. Although for some reason the second time the same thing happens, all of a sudden Terra's spirit suddenly interferes, but I have no idea what Sora's spiritual journey had anything to do with that. Okay, apparently there's an optional scene where Namine releases Terra. I missed out on that one. Still kind of awkward that the only reason Sora's spiritual journey has any results is because of a chance encounter with Namine, but oh well. But you know, as much as I'm nitpicking here and there, in general I really enjoyed Kingdom Hearts 3 and I had a good time, so it was great. A little short, but great. Well, there's probably a million things more to say about Kingdom Hearts 3, but I'll leave it at this for the moment. Gotta get back to work on animating. But yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 is definitely parody friendly, so expect one of those eventually. I hope I can find a decent Donald Duck voice actor this time. Anyway, bye-bye.